Hello and welcome to the podcast.
Brand new podcast. We're doing it, man. We talked about this a little bit about wanting to maybe do some other form of content besides our reaction videos, which is sort of the bread and butter of the channel. One of us hasn't seen a movie. We watch it, react to it, and have a good time. And one of the things you suggested was doing an occasional podcast as well, where you could talk about more than just, whatever movie we're reacting to.
Yeah, there's been situations where, folks on our Discord server have suggested movies to watch, but we both have seen them or they're classics. And I thought, we try and keep our videos to a certain length so you're not having to stick around for too long, but so that you can enjoy the movie, hear kind of our thoughts, and then join us on Discord to have more discussion. But yeah, the podcast would be great to just share ideas, share our thoughts and things on things, and have conversation.
Yeah. I mean, we get great suggestions in our comments on YouTube, as well as a suggestion channel in our Discord. But unfortunately, some of the time, the suggestion is great, but we've both already seen the movie.
Right.
And then it's like, damn, we would want to talk about that though. So this is maybe a format where we just have the freedom to talk about anything we want, and not just movies, but also TV, anime and games, and
other things that catch our interest that are in the entertainment industry that often they heavily influence movies.
Yeah.
Adaptations and things like that.
Yeah. And there's always stuff happening too. So I'm constantly seeing headlines about things going on in the entertainment industry, and those are fun to talk about. And there's actually some pretty compelling stuff that's happened just this week. I figured maybe we could, talk about 3 or 4 of those things. We talk about something in movies, something in television, something in animation, something in gaming, and use those as sort of the lead-ins to some conversation.
Yeah.
Starting off with a story that you and I both, I think, found out about today, and maybe expected that this may come at some point in time.
I thought it was silenced. I thought I would never see this resurface.
Yeah. So CBS News and other outlets obviously reporting that Mandalorian actress Gina Carano is suing Disney over her firing after some posts that she made on social media. After, I think it was season 2. After season 2.
After season 2.
Yeah. She was in some
episodes. This was back in
2.
2021.
Yeah. So CBS News reported that actress Gina Carano on Tuesday filed a lawsuit against Lucasfilm and its parent company, the Walt Disney Company, over her 2021 firing from the series. In the suit, she alleges she was wrongfully terminated over controversial posts made on X, aka Twitter. In one post, the actress compared the divided American political climate to Nazi Germany, also accused of mocking transgender people and mocking mask wearing during the COVID pandemic. What's also interesting about this is Gina said on a Twitter post where she announced this lawsuit that Elon Musk is actually providing the funds and legal counsel to represent her and support the case. Regardless of how you feel about, Elon Musk and stuff like that, this whole thing, for me at least, begs an important question. To what extent can studios impose restrictions on free speech, whether it's on social media or to the news or wherever, impose rules under threat of termination to actors, writers, crew members, what have you? Do their rights to free speech protect them, or should protect them from being terminated?
I think, like any company, employees or contracted people represent that company. They represent that brand. While you are working for a company, it's generally known or taught, and it should be if it's not taught, when you're wearing that uniform, when you are working on that show, that program, when you're working in that store, in that company, on the clock and off the clock, you represent that company. While you don't have to agree with their morals, their standings, their corporate beliefs, saying things that, yes, we have a right as a First Amendment to speak our minds, to say. There are repercussions to that. Several years ago at Walgreens, there was a pharmacist that came out on TikTok posting videos of controversial topics, taking sides, being very inflammatory with his comments and his things he was saying. It came to surface. He was fired by Walgreens. He was let go. Walgreens, obviously a company that doesn't really get tossed around in political or social conversations, but you still acted out of pocket. You still said things that were not even controversial. They were just rude. They were out of pocket. They were wrong.
Maybe not a representation that the studio or the company would want to risk having associated with them.
Yeah.
Which is understandable. I mean, it was only a few years ago they resurrected Roseanne, the television series, with, most, if not all, of the
Roseanne
original
Barr,
cast.
John Goodman, the whole cast came back, I think, except for like one or two people.
Right. And now it's called The Conners for a reason.
Yes.
Roseanne's no longer in it
because
she also posted some stuff on social media of a political nature.
Very disgusting things.
Was terminated from her own series.
Her own show. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we have a right as U.S. citizens, as Americans. Free speech is a thing. No one's denying it. However, there are consequences to things you may or may not say.
Right.
There are rewards to things you may or may not say, and it's not that you are not allowed to say these things. You are, but just understand that they have consequences. And, when you are a person, an individual, you do represent yourself. But if you work for someone, if you work for a company, if you're married, right, and you find out your spouse is going around saying these things, that looks poorly on the spouse. I mean, on you.
Right, because people are going to assume that you believe the same things.
And you might not necessarily.
Right.
But that's the image on a much grander, bigger scale when you're talking about a multi-billion-dollar company like Disney.
And I mean, businesses have protections like the right to refuse service to customers for any reason. Obviously, if there's discrimination, then the individual who feels discriminated has a right to file a lawsuit like Gina Carano is doing in this case. But it's, it's freedom of speech only protecting you from the government and other individuals, but not necessarily from a company that has their protected right to not associate with you or to terminate you. The sort of concept of what's it called when companies can just terminate you for no reason.
At will.
Yeah, at will employment, right?
Yeah.
That maybe there's something to that. But I think maybe the unique challenges in the entertainment industry is Disney has to make a choice, right? They see these social media posts. Maybe they see people replying in comments negatively. Maybe Disney's even tagged and blamed by individuals for not addressing what the actress or actors are saying. And then Disney feels like they have an obligation to do something. But by cutting an actor or an actress, you're also kind of compromising the content that exists, right? Because maybe you were supposed to have that character continue their arc in the next episodes or next season or something like that. I mean, we also saw this with Powers. What's his first name? The guy who played Kang in the Marvel stuff.
Jonathan
Yes.
Majors.
Majors, yes. Jonathan Majors.
Yeah.
Similar stuff, right? The guy who did the voice of Rick in Rick and Morty. Having
the accusations coming out against
accusations
him.
of domestic abuse. And although I think he was not, I don't remember what the results of the court case were, but the studio didn't wait for the results of that case because I think they decided it's better for our reputation overall to not associate with the person anymore rather than wait to see if they're defensible. Rick and Morty's going to continue and you need a voice for Rick. And are you going to find now the creative question is, are you going to find somebody else to recast?
They did.
Or, but the thing is, like, that voice is so unique, right?
It is.
So it's like, okay, we have to recast this role because this is half of the show. But do we go with the challenge of just letting that voice be that voice, asking our audience to just accept that and continue to suspend their disbelief about that? Or is that going to be a problem? The people be like, well, they don't sound like Rick anymore and I don't like the show anymore because of that. And now they lose viewership. So
I don't think that there's a right or wrong answer to that. I think it's very circumstantial to the moment and to the people in charge of the show and where they want to go. And as much as you might know your fan base, there's no telling how they'll feel. There will be people that will drop Rick and Morty, and there are other people that will continue to watch Rick and Morty, and then there will be people that will just be indifferent. Like, hey, as long as the humor is fine and it kind of sounds like Rick, no big deal. There have been cartoons, animations, TV shows that have been recast between seasons. I mean, one of the earliest examples of this is Bewitched, where they recasted not Daryl, the husband's name. Yeah. For season 1 and 2, don't quote me on this, I'm remembering off my memory, but season 1 and 2 was one actor that played the husband, and then suddenly the rest of the show was a completely different actor with no explanation playing the same character.
Right.
You know, and that was 50s,
Right.
60s. You know, you also have instances like in Avatar: The Last Airbender where Uncle Iroh, the actor, passes away.
Yeah. And in
what
that
do you
case,
do?
and
You
in that
have
case,
to.
yeah, in that case, they recast it, but the actor tried to imitate the voice and did a pretty great job of
Did a fine
replicating
job.
the voice of the previous actor.
They also did something really smart in the writing where they made Uncle Iroh take a vow of silence
Yes.
for several episodes.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was
As
smart.
they kind of got it back together. Very smart.
Right.
You know, there's ways to handle these situations. While an actor creating a situation like Jonathan Majors or Justin Roiland
In their personal lives.
in their personal lives, creating a conflict where studios, producers, and production companies are at what do we do right now? I think it doesn't have to be, well, they passed away, we have to recast. It's up to the studios and creators to just go, yeah, let's just recast and keep moving, because the project is bigger than that person.
Right,
While
right.
they may be very key to the success or the character or the qualities of the show, movie, production, bands do it all the time in music.
Yeah. And The Witcher. I think we're going to see a large community response to recasting in The Witcher TV series as well.
I wish Thor's younger brother, I wish him all the best. If they had walked up to me and said, hey, we want you to play Geralt, I would not have turned that down. And if any of you have seen me, I look nothing like Henry Cavill.
Yeah. Well, you know, I would want to be paid an amount of money that would make them also feel a bit insulated from the failure of it. Say like, don't pay me $8 million. Yeah, pay me 30 grand, because that way I'm not going to feel bad for what
because part of that's going to go into fitness training, into a nutritionist.
No, you're going to do it just to get the abs.
Yeah.
Get ripped and then
phone it in during filming and just be like, whatever, the show is doomed anyway.
Yeah. Well, in the case of Gina Carano, I think, you know, the news is going to follow this. So we're probably going to see a little bit of details coming out about the actual contracts that these actors sign.
Yeah.
And whether or not these contracts detail anything when it comes to like their behavior
I have something to say about that.
outside of work.
Yeah. So I think that if this lawsuit is coming out now, 3 years later, clearly she's had a team of lawyers pick
Hopefully.
through that contract. Hopefully.
Yeah.
To even have some sort of grounds, because Disney lawyers are
Right.
the best, they say, in the industry, right?
Yeah.
Second thing I want to add to this is when you watch press junkets, and if those of you at home listening, watching, don't, you should. Check out press junkets for some of your favorite films, some of your favorite actors. Know what they go through. And then watch them, how they talk about films. Especially look at press junks of movies that flopped or that were bad or just not received well.
Right.
You can watch the actors sell the movie and not really, you can tell they don't believe in it.
Yeah. They've got to hold on to their integrity, but at the same time,
Because it's
They
part of a
can't-
contractual obligation.
yeah.
To speak well of a movie before it comes out. And even then, Mark Hamill was notoriously like well versed in how he spoke about things related to Luke Skywalker.
Right. And his disagreements about where they took the character.
Until the movie was already out. And then it was after that the movie was out and they wrote him off. He was like, okay, let me tell you what I really think.
Right. So maybe there is a sort of limitation, whether it's contractual or otherwise,
Mhm.
where it's like, look, I have to support the movie regardless of how I
Mhm.
feel until such and such time, after which I can just be like, okay, now that my character has been killed off, I'm going to say
Yeah.
what I really feel.
Yeah, exactly. And at this point, Gina Carano in 2021 was currently employed by Lucasfilm, was currently a reoccurring character in the show Mandalorian, and very actively would be representing Disney.
Mhm.
You have your right to an opinion. You have your right to free speech, but saying certain things and intentionally being inflammatory about the things that she was saying, because she was also making fun of mask mandates and other things related to the pandemic in a time where misinformation was going around. And we're in a health crisis, a literal medical pandemic trying to save lives.
Yeah.
And
But at the
she's
same time,
currently fighting this.
yeah,
it's
because her
causing
argument
problems.
is I wasn't actually making fun of anyone or discriminating against anybody, and people misinterpreted me. And, you know, that's possible,
That's
right? It
backpedaling.
is possible that, you know, sometimes people just express themselves poorly, very poorly.
It
It
happens all the
doesn't
time.
necessarily mean that they're bad people. They just maybe they're emotional. Like I can't put myself in the mind of that person. And you know, as a fan, I'm conflicted because she played one of my favorite characters in the series.
Yeah.
But then I can't agree with what was said. So I'm also in this kind of place where like, do I even know who to root for here? Do I root for Disney? Do I root for her? Do I just watch how this unfolds and not have an opinion and just, you know, whatever? We talk about the topic sort of more conceptually here.
I think too often we look at situations like this as like, all right, who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy? I don't think it's as black and white as that.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's very neutral. You know, Disney's not a hero in this. They had to do something they felt they had to do, which clearly upset her and several other people. And she did things that upset people. I don't think that there's like, who do I root for? I think it's just kind of like, all right, let's see where the consequences lie. Let's see where things go from here. And it's just kind of factual in this way. You know, the case with Jonathan Majors. When the allegations first came out, my immediate response was not like, oh, what a terrible human being. They're allegations. I immediately thought, man, what a disappointment if these turn out to be true.
Yeah.
But that's let the evidence speak more for itself. And it's like such a prominent, prestigious, great up and coming actor having an amazing career off the bat. And now, lo and behold, a year or sometime later, the verdict is out and it's just like, damn.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's the thing is that like in America, we're supposed to be considered innocent until proven guilty.
Correct.
But companies seem to operate now under the presumption of guilt in order to sort of insulate themselves from PR nightmares of continuing to associate with people. It would suck to be, an actor or actress in a famous series or something like that and be in the midst of your career and have a false allegation come out and the studio insulate themselves before you've been able to prove that you have nothing to do with it. And now your career and is in the toilet potentially.
Case in point with Aziz Ansari. There were sexual.
What happened there?
So he was in the middle of making a Netflix TV series that was fantastic.
Yeah, called
I'm blanking on the name of it, but it was a fantastic Netflix series. 2 incredible seasons. Lena Waithe is also in it. And after the second season, there were sexual misconduct allegations brought upon him. And they turned out to be false and fabricated. But at that point,
it's too late. Studios already cut ties.
And the studios didn't cut ties with him, essentially. The show continued on for a season 3. However, he decided to make Lena Waithe's character the main character of season 3, made a few cameo appearances, was still involved in the creation of it, but he personally took a step out of the spotlight.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So exactly in that case where allegations come up and when they dropped Jonathan Majors, to me, what that said was, oh, they know things we do not. They have evidence.
Yeah, possibly.
Well, Gina Carano here, to go back on subject, while she didn't commit a crime, she broke protocol. That was what Disney deemed to be uncharacteristic of their branding.
Right. Well, I mean, that's going to be what the case comes out to is whether or not it was
contractually okay.
Spoken or unspoken rules about their demeanor, you know, on social media.
And they'll have to prove it on paper because unspoken is not going to work in a court of law. And Disney's lawyers know better than that.
Yeah. Well, we'll follow that story in the meantime, since we kind of also talked a little bit about TV as part of this conversation. Blue-Eyed Samurai actually has announced that they are going to make a season 2. This is a really great Netflix series. It's animated. It came out and it stars an actress who does the voice of the main character Mizu, aka the Blue-Eyed Samurai.
Yes, Maya Erskine.
Yes, who is now doing a series on Amazon?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I know nothing about it. You said you just finished the entire series.
I binged it in like a day and a half. It's only 8 episodes, but I was hooked.
So is this actually, I don't know. So this is a stupid question maybe.
Yeah.
Is this related to the Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, Mr. and Mrs. Smith thing, or is it its own thing?
So I did a little background because after I watched something that I love, TV shows, movies, animation, I always deep dive into its creation. I believe that it's really important to understand context of art, and I love to learn why it was made, how it was made. So Mr. and Mrs. Smith was co-created by Donald Glover because during the pandemic, he wanted to do a movie, a TV show that discussed the idea of why do people get married? That's the concept.
Okay.
What I don't know how eventually it got to Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but yes, this is loosely related to the original TV show that
there was
came
a TV
out
show
in 1995.
Really?
Yes, starring your boy, blanking on his name.
What are
now.
they from?
He was one of the captains in Star Trek Generations. No, he also,
Next Generation,
not Next Generation.
Deep Space Nine,
Not Deep Space Nine. It was
Voyager,
newer than that.
Newer than Enterprise. Scott Bakula.
Scott Bakula.
Hey.
Scott Bakula plays Agent John Smith.
This was 1995.
Yes, and Mina, she was in Coyote Ugly. She plays Mrs. Jane Smith.
Okay.
So yeah, it was an original TV show that the movie was based off of in a loose way.
Okay.
And now this new TV show is actually based off the original TV show.
Interesting.
Because the premises are different.
Okay.
Similar idea, spy couple, action scenes, lots of fun, spy stuff, but the premise of the movie and the TV show are different.
Yeah.
I won't say anything that's not in the trailers, so this isn't a spoiler, but in the movies, if we remember the trailer, Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie don't know that the other one's an agent.
Right.
In the TV show trailer for Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Donald Glover and Maya Erskine's characters sign up for an agency and get put together in an arranged marriage. So they know that they are married.
Spy family, but not, but they do know. They are aware.
So having rewatched Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the movie this weekend, I actually realized that Spy Family, and I haven't looked this up, is heavily influenced by Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the movie. In fact, Angelina Jolie has a scene in the movie where she puts on bondage gear to go make an assassination, and she's using knives, and the way her coat hangs and her knee highs,
it looks like Yor from the anime.
Yor is absolutely, fight me on this. I want to speak to the creator of Spy Family. Fight me on this. It is an absolute just
Xerox
inspiration by Angelina Jolie.
I have to look up screenshots now and see.
Yeah,
because that's cool.
So sorry to go off on a tangent.
No, I mean, this is what we're here to do. We're here to tangent until we forget what we started.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith was fantastic. Maya Erskine, I'm very excited about her career right now. I just watched a movie with her in it called Plus One last night. And her job in Mizu has just, in Blue Eyed Samurai as Mizu, was fantastic. Yeah. Like when I found out that she voiced Mizu, was blown away.
Yeah, I was shocked too because I've followed her career through a show on Hulu called Pen 15.
Pen 15, yeah.
Which is set in like the early 2000s about, you know, a teenage middle school / high school girls.
It's like kind of like them as they were back then.
That life, yeah.
Playing themselves in high school.
Right. And, you know, she's like she started that series with her friend and she's absolutely hilarious in that, pure comedy.
Yeah.
And then not only was Blue Eyed Samurai by comparison a very serious role, whereas her Maya in Pen 15 is very ridiculous, but also her voice is like unrecognizable in comparison. So when I found this out, I was like, no way. And I had to watch some footage to be like, detect any hints of a voice that I recognize. And I was like, that can't be her, but it is. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, the voice actors and actresses in Blue Eyed Samurai are fantastic. I mean, I recognize Mazioka. I recognize the gangster guy that worked with the Lord or whatnot, one of the few white guys in the movie in the show. You know, it has a fantastic cast, but Maya Erskine seriously delivers an incredible performance, voice acting wise, to bring Mizu to life, because Mizu's intense, but Mizu's not no John Wick who's practically invincible. Like through the series, Mizu shows her mortality, and the part of the show is Mizu hiding that she's a woman and being a man most of the time. And I think that Maya's performance really shows through as masking her voice to be more masculine and deliver these lines that are very short. And there's so much emotional restraint as she's delivering some
Right.
of these lines. Maya just absolutely killed it.
Yeah. And George Takei, or Takei,
Yes,
however you want to
yes.
pronounce it, from Star Trek. I feel like I detected his voice, but I wasn't certain.
I heard it immediately. Yeah.
I was like, this sounds like him, but it also could be somebody similar. So, great voice cast in that. I do have one question for you about that style of animation, because it is heavily computer generated animation, and we're seeing more and more of that in the industry. More anime are using computer. Examples I can think of right off the top of my head: Dorohedoro, the most recent Ghost in the Shell
Jujutsu Kaisen
series. Yeah, Jujutsu. Well, here's the thing about Jujutsu though. That to me feels more like a blend that leans more towards hand drawn, but you can see where it's supplemented.
The
whereas
style of this computer
these are
animation.
you can tell these are fully computer. Whereas the hand drawn element is more constructed around it, so that you still have the feel of animation rather than it's all CGI, and because that has to have style.
There's traditional 2D animation, which is paper and pen or paper and ink, and you draw multiple sheets to create the animation. And then came out like computer animation, which is still 2D with pads and whatnot, but digitally different. And then now we're taking it to like rendering these 3D objects
with a texture that still gives it a feel of a
which is very
hand-drawn
much
or
Disney's
painted.
new way of doing things. Pixar, and then Ghost in the Shell you mentioned, and now Blue-Eyed Samurai.
And I think there are a lot of diehard people who've been watching anime for like their whole lives who don't like seeing computer being used more and more in animation.
It was
and
very
anime
jarring for me specifically.
So I wonder, do you feel like this is something that people just need to accept? Is it lazy? Is it just studios trying to be more cost effective? Is it more cost effective? Like,
it's faster to produce. It's not, I don't think it is more cost effective. I think it's just allows for a better turnout of product, so studios are able to create more faster than before. And is this a matter of like, will people have to get used to it? Is it what's going to replace animation? I don't think
like
so.
Will it take over? Because I think sometimes what happens is it's just like fashion, right? Things come back, old things come back.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, film photography and vinyl records are like the thing right now. Who the hell thought that was coming in the 2000s? 20 years ago.
Who thought Jinko jeans were coming back?
Yeah, exactly. Those things were obsolete. But I think that there's an appreciation that comes back for like analog, where eventually there will probably be a resurgence of analog. And, stop motion animation is such an underground thing. And I say underground because it's a long, tedious process. And we're only gifted with a stop motion animation, I think like once a year, if anything.
Yeah.
But I think that, this is a new direction. This is just new technology. And you know what? It allows for a new way to view media.
Yeah.
The same way that CG green screens, CG animation allowed movies to do things that they couldn't do before. But like always, too much of a good thing's a bad thing. Yeah. We lean too much into the CG. We get these washed out movies that are very Marvel's MCU.
Yeah.
Fun and entertainment, but they don't look anything like the things from the 80s and 90s did with practical effects.
Yeah. I mean, I think there
just
is
a different
something
style.
Totally. There's something to be said about effort, right? Like, for example, Studio Ghibli, right? I think one of the reasons why people respect and enjoy it so much is not just because they're continuing to hand draw and they're not leaning into computer. I've seen a few scenes that are obviously computer assisted, but that's just to create environments or things like that. But
they use it as a tool, not the medium.
Right. It's not. Yeah, exactly. And I think the added appreciation for Studio Ghibli is the effort. We know the effort that goes into hand drawing these things to a level of excellence. It's not easy. It's not fast. And it's, the same thing would be like a sculpture, hand carving something versus it being a poured thing in a factory. Like, we appreciate effort that goes into things. And, actually, you mentioned stop motion animation. It makes me wonder, Netflix has come out with two things that are based on hand-drawn stuff, Relakama and the new Pokemon Concierge.
Mm-hmm.
And those are stop motion.
Yeah.
But are they? Are we sure? Because you could just do it in computer and then texture it to look felted, and it looks like stop animation. And I'm certain there's probably some examples where there's a thing that's supposed to look like stop motion that was made on a computer.
Yeah.
I don't have evidence.
Well, there is
feeling.
behind the scenes of Pokemon Concierge. I can't speak of the other thing that you mentioned because I haven't watched it or heard of that. But there are behind the scenes of Pokemon Concierge, and they did a lot of it through stop motion. And where they did incorporate CG was backgrounds. So it was kind of like having actors work on green screen, where a lot of the times they did create the set, but then the mountains in the background were CG'd, or the ocean in the background was CG'd,
right?
Or the trees or whatnot. But they would be on the sets, and then they would use computer animation, similar to how Ghibli and other studios use, as a tool to just polish the scene.
Yeah.
To be able to smooth animation or just like connect two things.
Yeah, or maybe fix mistakes or something.
So like, their Psyduck, who's an actual puppet, like gets onto this like zip line. And this is one example, but like, they use CG to kind of smooth out moving him onto the zip line so it stays fluid.
Yeah.
And it looks fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to talk about behind the scenes of things, like anything that came out of Leica, the studio that does all kinds of amazing stop motion animation, like Kubo, the 2 strings, stuff like that.
Yep.
Like
they also did box trolls too, right?
Sounds right. Yeah. I mean, they are the Ghibli of stop motion. Like the stuff that they do by hand is incredible.
Yeah. Kubo was beautiful.
Yeah. So, I'm interested to see. I think obviously the technology is going to grow and it's going to become more prevalent, but the question is going to be whether it's going to detract from our enjoyment of it. Are we going to see that? Are we going to consider that to be a lack of effort? Is it going to actually increase our appreciation of studios that continue with more traditional process? I think
we can already look at the evidence that exists. Look at films like The Lighthouse or 1912.
1917?
1917, excuse me. Or The Batman with Robert Pattinson. Mm-hmm. You look at these movies, modern movies from current times in a world surrounded by MCU green screen, and the movies look and feel different because they were filmed on analog. They were filmed with
filmed on film
lenses and filmed on film.
Mm-hmm.
Oppenheimer as well.
Yeah, that one was notorious. It was something like I forget how many miles of film that they said it was. It was like go around the earth a million times.
So like
something like that.
We have this as example of what this new technology for animation is going to do. Some people are going to like it. Some people are not. People are going to criticize it. Other people are going to say it's ruining it. Other people are going to say it's advancing. All things are true. It's how us as individuals look at it and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because like a kid who doesn't like broccoli when he's young eventually learns to like broccoli. You just learn to accept it. You learn to take it because it's just another format for this medium, but I definitely believe, using my 3 films as examples, it will create an appreciation for traditional animation. Absolutely.
Brad Pitt apparently is going to star or appear in what Quentin Tarantino is saying is going to be his last film. I think I also heard that Martin Scorsese has said something in the effect of his next film is also going to be his last, and probably going to star De Niro or something like that. Do another film. And also I think when Boy and the Heron came out, people were like, wait a minute, didn't Miyazaki say that he was retired after his last film? So it reminds me of one of my conspiracy theories about marketing films. Do directors and studios just do this every now and then as a marketing strategy, to say, oh, it's their last film, so you have to go see it? Because for whatever reason, maybe they're worried that people don't care about Tarantino films anymore or something like that, and we have to make them care somehow.
Yeah, I'm wouldn't be surprised that that's oftentimes a strategy, and probably a strategy used for movies we didn't think it was being used on, you know? I know that sounds a little weird, but like this seems to be a big deal because Tarantino is so infamous and relevant of our modern times in cinema that it could just very well be Tarantino's like, guys, come on, I'm done with the feet shots. I don't have anything new. I don't have any fun new ideas. I just want to relax for a while. And it could very well be like, hey guys, the studios are like, Quentin, this movie's not that great. You know, let's just fake that you're retiring and, you know, sell some tickets.
Oh, so you're thinking maybe it's after they've wrapped and like the studios reviewed like an early cut edit. And they're like, oh,
the first draft.
People aren't going to like it.
That's where, I mean, to lean into your theory, that's where the theory would be birthed. You know what I mean? Sometimes during filming, yeah, you can you can hear actors talk about this, but sometimes during filming, everyone on set's kind of like, oh, this is going to flop. But you know what? Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher said that about Star Wars. You know, it's in that rough draft. It's in that final edit where you see what the movie is going to be. And I mean, Warner Brothers canned the Batgirl movie that was fully filmed and done.
Yeah.
Because they were like, ooh, no.
Was that the one with Ruby Rose? No, she was supposed to do a television show.
She was supposed to be doing a television show.
They canceled that too, didn't they?
Yes, they did. I don't remember why, but the movie was actually starred in written, directed, and filmed already. It was in post-production when it was canceled, or right in the final stages of it. I cannot remember her name. I'm terrible with names tonight, but she was from the movie In the Heights, the musical Broadway to movie done by Lin-Manuel. She was one of the characters in it, Nina, and she had just gotten her first starring role, and this was fantastic, and then just canned. I don't know. Is there a bad Tarantino movie? Maybe we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
Maybe that's an opinion. I think that maybe Tarantino's doing what I see often with artists where they're like, I just kind of want to take a break. Yeah, guys, I'm going to retire. And they're thinking very narrow-mindedly. Like, just don't say anything at all and just stop making things for a while.
Yeah, exactly. Announce you're retired like when you're
80.
Yeah, exactly. The question comes when you associate it with an upcoming or a release. And you know, Miyazaki, I brought up, but Boy and the Heron, the sort of the thing that we expect from studios, which is to heavily market films that are coming out. The news from Japan was that it wasn't advertised at all. It was just sort of like, if anything, it was advertised sort of like as a mystery film, and people went and saw it without it being marketed openly, and then it was successful. And then afterwards, it was marketed to foreign markets. So we heard about it before it arrived in the US, whereas in Japan, no one knew it was coming out. It just suddenly was available in theaters, and people didn't know what it was or what to expect, and were surprised that a Ghibli film was coming out at all.
But I will say, yeah, I would love to delve into the mind of Hayao.
Mm-hmm. Miyazaki.
To see, I just was like, am I pronouncing that right? That sounds right. I'd love to delve into Hayao's mind because, yeah, I mean, I know between us, it's been a running gag. Between some of our friends, it's been a gag. Like Miyazaki retiring, for the last 12 years?
Yeah, for the last 3 movies.
Secret Life of
this is the last movie. Okay, now this is the last.
Secret Life of Arrietty was his son's like first film without Hayao being on the project. I can't remember what it. Ponyo was supposed to be his last film before he retired.
Yeah, and that was a long time ago.
First time he said he was retiring, and has continuously come in. So it's like, I like to look at Hayao and think of someone dignified and refined, not impulsive or silly or reckless. Mm-hmm. His craft and his art is so like tedious and meticulous. But yeah, when I hear like Tarantino's announcing his retirement, my first thought is, no, you're not.
Yeah, I feel like Tarantino is one of those people that their ego will prevent them from ever stopping.
And I think also not only his ego, but his creative drive. Mm-hmm. I mean, the man has created some fantastic movies and stories and cultivated some great cultural relevant films. done some amazing things with cinematography. And I just feel like his creative mind and his creative spirit will not allow him to stay retired.
Yeah.
Like, impossible.
Yeah. I think it's rare in Hollywood that people actually announce that they're retiring.
Because they just
actors and directors and
appearing.
stuff. Yeah, they either just disappear and you don't notice, and then 20 years later, like, hey, what happened to so and so?
Yes.
Or they get sick, or they old age, or whatever.
In the case of Michael Caine getting older and not being able to really perform anymore.
Yeah,
Bruce
Gene
Willis,
Hackman, Bruce Willis,
Gene Hackman, Sean Connery.
Yeah, but then look at Clint Eastwood. The guy looks like the Crypt Keeper now, and he's still doing movies.
Still going, baby.
And
still
I feel
going.
like Tarantino's probably in that category of people that I don't believe it.
No, I can't see you wanting to stop making films. No.
He's going to work until he's dead.
If he's retiring from movies, it's because he's going to do something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't think that you needed to retire. I think it's such a very egocentric thing to announce a retirement.
The New Yorker article says that as early as 2009, when Tarantino was 46, he'd said, I intend to quit at 60 years old. I'm going to write novels and write cinema literature and stuff like that. It also says he's left the door open to directing television series, but he doesn't like the way that streaming services, the way that they operate, and the effect that the business of streaming platforms affects the creative output of.
Yeah, I wonder if he was on the picket line with the writer's strike, because that was the big issue, is like the streaming services and how they're done.
Yeah.
As fantastic as streaming services is, there's a lot of nuanced issues with it.
So, I mean, you know what? Unfortunately, with these kinds of things, only time will tell. Absolutely. So he's going to make this movie that is supposedly a sequel to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, or loosely sequel-ish to it.
Related in the same world.
Yeah, and then we'll see what he does afterwards. I mean, there's nothing else we can do but wait.
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully it's a banger. I'm sure it will be. I think the only Tarantino film I have not seen is Jackie Brown. Yeah. So for any of you in the Discord, do not suggest anything but Jackie Brown. I've seen all of Tarantino films, including Four Rooms, which was Robert Rodriguez, but Quentin Tarantino directed the last scene.
I loved that one. Yeah, with the lighter.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, those are the topics of the day. And if you want to suggest topics for our next podcast episode, or for our next movie reaction, if maybe one of us hasn't seen it, you got to join the Discord. So in the description, click the link, join the Discord. We got all kinds of conversation going around about everything entertainment, and leave your suggestions for us.
Yeah, definitely. We look forward to it. We look forward to talking to you guys, and thanks for joining us.